Thank you.
And we are at halftime here behind Enemy Lines. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this show. I'm Gene Baradelli. Russ is away this week. But while we got you listening, check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of this live broadcast here behind Enemy Lines, you can check us out on any one of our rebroadcasting outlets, including WNJC 1360 AM, Philadelphia's Renaissance Station. Check us out on Red State Talk Radio, on High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, K98 Talk, and we want to welcome aboard our newest rebroadcasting outlet, ICRN, the Internet's Conservative Radio Network. Check them out at www.conservativeradionetwork.com. And if you missed any of those rebroadcasts, check us out on demand. We're everywhere, folks. We're on Spreaker, we're on Stitcher, we're on TuneIn, we're on iTunes, we're on Podbay, we're on iHeartRadio, and just recently, we've also now added, and of course Player FM, we've talked about them before as well, but we've also added Google Play Podcasts to the mix. Check us out on there, register with Google, and go into Google Play Music, and you can get Behind Enemy Lines there as well. Let's talk a little bit, folks, about what we just heard from Shaun McCutcheon. And by the way, check him out at conservativeactionfund.com. I screwed up in the chat room. I put .org, and I got the 404 message there. Didn't really work out too well. Thank God you didn't see it on air. But you know what? Let's talk about this for a second. Is more money better or worse for politics? Your typical liberal from, Park Slope, Brooklyn, People's Republic of New York City will tell you, God, no, corporations are evil. And they'll be telling it to you as they're on their iPhone wearing their Abercrombie and Fitch, playing around with their either their Samsung or their iPhone and all the other commercialized things about them and with them. And they'll be telling you how corporations are evil, get big money out of politics, it stifles democracy. And it hasn't gotten to the point yet where they realize that when people are motivated, they can do great things. Corporations are motivated because they have self-interest. People need to be just as motivated and go where they can get their message amplified and heard, and that's by supporting organizations that they believe in. Look at the Tea Party, for example. That's a loose conglomeration of people who have banded together for a message. And their voices, as little as they are being heard loud and clear to the point where things have now changed in our political landscape. We have a race right now that is totally to the right of where the primary was in the last presidential cycle. And everybody's going to say Koch brothers. Everybody's going to say, on our side we're going to say Soros and big money bad and all this other nonsense out there. But the fact of the matter is, how else are you going to influence policy unless you gather together and you're heard and you mobilize and you organize? I can be a man shouting into the wind right now. It's not going to change anything. But I can get together with other people shouting into the wind under a framework that will be effective. And I can make change happen. I think that's the point of McCutcheon versus FEC. Everybody that has an interest in outcomes of government deserve a place to have their voices heard. And you know what? Money and donations happens at the grassroots level all the time. We all support our friend running for city council or for a county office or dog catch, whatever the case may be. We speak with our wallets all the time when we go into a supermarket and I buy Coke over Pepsi. That's me stating a preference and doing it with my wallet. Happens all the time. We shouldn't be surprised it's in politics. It's on a greater magnitude when you're talking about presidential politics. But that's why there are all these issue groups out there. All these issue groups out there. All these different funds out there. Whatever you're really passionate about, support them. If you're big on veterans issues, there's organizations like Concerned Veterans for America that needs your support. If voting rights are your issue, go find True the Vote. Go find Judicial Watch. If there's a social conservative issue out there that you want to find, I'm sure the Radiance Foundation, our friend Ryan Bomberger, will enjoy your support. People vote and choose with their wallets all the time. This should be no different. Going into the chat room right now, I'm going to be reading some comments. We got our friend Jack Buckby in the chat saying that parties with no big business donors win local elections and even enter in the European Parliament. It can be done. It just depends on the message. And that is a key. You can have all the money in the world, Jeb Bush, and not get anywhere. The money doesn't matter. The message does. And when the message and the money meet, great things can happen. Jeb Bush spent a ton per vote. Where did it get him? It's not necessarily where the money is. It's the message. And when message meets money, good things happen. I'm going to let the conversation keep continuing in the chat room, but hit us up on our website, www.BehindEnemyLinesRadio.us. Give us your opinion on the website. Tons of ways to contact us, either through the Facebooks and the Twitters, like I talk about all the time. And let us know what you think. Another comment from Dano is that the NRA is a corporation too. Should they not be able to rep their folks just like the unions do? And there's the flip side. See, Dano hit on something perfect here to talk about. Liberals play this game on the opposite side. It's not big business, it's big labor. And we've seen in other court decisions where it's a captive audience that they have. People must donate to their unions. And that money goes to political means. A lot of that's getting struck down. I know that the Harris case that we talked about last year in the Supreme Court is one of those cases where you didn't have, where it struck down mandatory union dues to go into its political purposes. There's no choice there on their side. They just pay it. How do you combat that? The other side should have the same rights and responsibilities too. And that's what we're looking at, folks. I no wonder. And you know, Dano hit this on the head. That's why you're seeing a backlash against Citizens United and McCutcheon and all these line of decisions. That's a great call. I'm glad he brought it up. But as much as we like slamming the left on all these things, we do have to give them equal time. On this show, we try to be fair and balanced. Yeah, right. We're not fair and balanced. We're right. We're where we should be, on the right. We are right. So what we're going to do right now is basically just provide that opposition voice to the Reverend Al Sharpton. Gene Baradelli behind Enemy Lines will be back with Andre Walker and his latest monologue. But first, Reverend Al, here we go. The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks
Good evening,
to
Rev.
you, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwiddling, they do not want him dwiddling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics. I have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
and we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus, when Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night in evolution and Galileo. I mean, this whole thing of Galileo. America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Gene Barradelli, back behind enemy lines. And folks, I'd be remiss if we didn't go into the, what some would say, untimely demise of the Jeb #! Campaign. Folks, I've seen so much lamentation from some of my friends on the Facebooks and the Twitters about the fall of Jeb that we had to have Andre Walker, our friend from townhall.com, UK correspondent over there, do a little bit of a tribute. For those of you in mourning over Jeb #! This one's going to be for you. We're sorry your guy's out. It's not like he didn't have the money. It's not like he didn't have the operation. Just didn't have the message. But to cheer you up, here's our friend Andre Walker with his weekly monologue.
Hello and welcome. My name's Andre Walker, and your weekly monologue starts right now. This week saw a disaster for all lovers of Bush. Firstly, the former Republican governor of Florida and financier's favourite, Jeb Bush, gave up the ghost after an appalling presidential run. Jeb's efforts were like the 60th anniversary of Disneyland. No matter how much you spend on the fireworks, the TV coverage and the dodgy builds, it just isn't the real deal. Both Disneyland and Jeb were taking the mickey. Seriously, they were taking the mickey. If Fox News is to be believed, $150 million of Jeb's Super Six-Pack now goes to Rubio. But then again, Fox News has been wrong before. I imagine they'll be wrong again. But that's not the biggest blow to lovers of Bush. Of course not. We all know that true lovers of Bush don't blow that often. I'm talking, of course, about the ladies, or rather, the women. Spelt W-I-M-I-N. You know the ones, the hairy girls, who holiday in the Greek island of Lesbos. It's hard to tell whether they're really girls anyway, or just the teenage, fat friends of your little brother. They all wanted the hardline communist Bernie Sanders to beat Hillary in every single primary. And as I said last week, that's got to be because they felt the last Clinton in the White House left a nasty taste in at least one woman voter's mouth. How desperate must Bill have been, though, to do it with Monica? Jesus, God, no, not Monica. She was horrendous. In fact, the big question the liberal media never ask is how did the Clintons amass a $200 million fortune after a life solely in the public sector? Their financials smell worse than the undergarment of Bernie Sanders' teenage fans. And to be fair to American parents, I can understand why they don't want to investigate the financials of the Clintons, because also they don't want to investigate the smell of the undergarments of their teenage children. Nothing wrong with that. In the UK, we all know the risk of Sanders and his sweaty underpant children, because we already have one of Bernie's family in British politics, his hardline brother, Larry. whose Wikipedia describes him as